Thank you everyone for joining in. My name is Arjun Singh. I am a sports management professional, like most of us on this call here. I'm here to talk about my journey and how I got to be in this industry, how I got to follow my passion and be where I am today. I'll be talking about two things in particular: what sports management and the landscape of sports management in India is like today. That would include my journey and the value of a sports management degree. And the second thing is how the government and the public sector is involved with sports, and especially with a look in India, and what the future for that entails for sports events, sports management, and professionals like you and myself in India. So let's start. I'd like this to be a conversation as much. I'm not great with monologues. So if you have questions, please start putting in the comments. I'll be happy to take them up while I'm talking. So let's start with sports management consulting. So management consulting, of course, is a very popular profession in around the world and in India as well. Sports sector in management consulting has been very rare across the world. It's not just India. Typical management consulting firms are like the McKinseys, BCGs, and even the audit firms like EY, PwC, Grant Thornton. All of them are set up as management consulting firms across the world, and they have a flourishing business in that aspect. What they don't have as a big sector is sports. Across the world, sports management consulting for these companies are limited just because it's not a very profitable sector to be in. But the West started changing that trend, starting with Europe and the US, where companies like KPMG are front runners in helping the football industry and sports industry overall get to where they are today. They've helped them and they've shown the clients in the sports industry the value of management consultants. And typically, what that means is, as management consultants, our product is our individuals, our people, and the value we add and how we can help the process of an organization or a client improve. And that's what typically management consulting is. In sports, it's something which wasn't looked at by whether it's a club or a federation or events. They didn't look at consultants initially, and the trend has started changing over the last decade or so. And in India, it's changing as we speak. I mean, over the last few years, it's seen the rise of sports consultants coming on board. And of course, it's a long way to go, but from how I see it, it's only the only way is up. So about my journey, I used to be a football player growing up, and when I was in high school and even younger than that, and it didn't take off the way I wanted to in terms of a profession. And like most of us, I'm sure I had a background in sports just as much as you did. Um, but very early in the career, it was clear to me that I'm not going to make it at the top level. And given the current circumstances, I decided to get into the business of sports at a young age. And that's when I was about 19, 20 years old and just in college. And I started working with sports events and seeing how I can contribute and learn from that. And from there on, I started working in different industries where I could get a job. But one of my stints was with EY, Ernst& Young, from 2011 to 15. And out there, I realized that I started doing some sports projects with EY, and I was fortunate enough to get that opportunity. And that between 2010, after the Commonwealth Games, is the time where India started seeing a lot of traction for sports. We didn't capitalize a lot on it at that moment, but the Commonwealth Games was a big turning point in terms of the business for sports in India. So at that time, I got involved in a lot of sports events, and I was fortunate enough to get those opportunities and realize that, look, this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. I want to work in sports, and although that might compromise some way financially for me in terms of salaries, in terms of my growth, I'm willing to take that risk. So I did bet it all, and I moved completely into the sports industry, starting with EY, and then I did my master's in sports management from Columbia University in New York, and that's where things started settling in for me. I was lucky to get that break, and I did a master's in sports management. And at that time, it was very uncertain. This is 2015, and getting a master's in sports management, people are not sure where to go from there because it's not looked at as a very viable option for many sports opportunities outside in the market because it's a relatively new degree to get. And but I did get it, and it turned out to be fantastic for me because of the learnings I got in that institute, because of the connections I made, and of course the value of a degree from an institute like that was fantastic for me, and it helped me set up what I wanted to in India. I set up my own, you know, running academy along with my brother, and eventually I started working with Grant Thornton, where I am today, and it's been more than 3 years, and I've helped Grant Thornton set up the sports consulting practice, and today it's taken off where Grant Thornton was regarded last year by ISST as the #1 sports consultancy in India. So that's a brief about my journey. It's very important to note that I did study in US, but I chose to come back here because my passion has always been to develop sports in India. I've seen the grassroots system growing up in it, and I want to do the best I can to help it. So I want to talk about the difference between the sports industry in US and in India, because I did work a bit there as well. And in the US, I found the sports industry to be extremely mature. People who've got decades and decades of experience working in the sports industry, and they're ready to add that value. It's a very mature market, and I don't see that in India. It's very rare to find people with 30 years of work experience in sports in India, just because there hasn't been that much apart from cricket in India in terms of a business. And in the US, it was very common to find that it's like working in any other industry, and sports is a very successful, mature market, and people can make a good living off it. And I was lucky enough to work with Wasserman, which was an agency, one of the leading sports agencies out there, and it was run by Casey Wasserman, who was also the head of the Los Angeles Olympic bid. And all of that combined gave me a great insight into what sports industry in the US is like. And I think in India we are not even halfway there at the moment, but we are on the right track. And in the long term, I think we can only get bigger and bigger. So I spoke about the value of my sports degree and how it has helped me. And for any students on this call, I would like to tell you that there will be people on both sides of the table telling you that maybe the sports degree is not relevant, maybe it is. I will tell you from my personal experience that it is extremely relevant if you use it right. And that means that the learnings you have got and the personality you have formed over the course of your degree and the experience before that is what's going to get you your work and your job, not just a degree and a piece of paper. That's not how it works. When I hire people, and when Grant Thornton, when we hire people for the sports industry and our projects, we look at a bunch of things, not just the degree on paper. And it's about the overall personality. And in the interview, we kind of look at the person you are and the value you're able to add to us. It's not necessarily about the current knowledge you have of the current affairs going on, or the fact that you can do PowerPoint or Excel extremely well. It's a culmination and a club of all those things together, and the value we see you add into a particular role. So coming from that into what I'm doing at Grant Thornton. Grant Thornton is started the sports consulting practice in 2017 when I joined, and we at that moment foresaw a lot of scope in the potential next 10 years. So it's not an immediate 1 year, 2 year plan. I was fortunate to get an opportunity with the partner in the firm where he saw a 10-year vision on where sports could be by 2025, 2027, and wanted to help build that up. So we started off with getting projects with the government, and the government was the reason because they have the funds available and they need the expertise of a consultant to come on board. The private sector in sports in India, which are the clubs and then the franchises and the sports agencies, are already having very talented individuals as well, but they're not willing to pay a fee for a consulting agency at this moment because we're still at a very nascent stage. I mean, if I was running a football club at this moment in India, and if I had 10 crores to be spent, I would try to make the best utilization of that money, rather than spending 30% of that, 40% of that on a consulting agency to help me spend the remaining 70% efficiently. That's just at this moment. But the more investment we start seeing in sports, the more investment we see in the industry as a whole, you'll see everything growing together. It's not that just infrastructure needs to be focused on or one side. When everything is focused on, when we build the talent base of our country in sports, when we build the coaches' capacity, that's when we see everything moving forward together. And for that reason, we started at Grant Thornton focusing on the public sector because there was a direct need for them to get people like you and I and professionals in the field who understand the sports industry to help them implement and their budgets in sports and to help the grassroots develop, to help them organize events. And we were fortunate enough to get some big mandates. So we started off with a bunch of infrastructure projects with the government, with Andhra Pradesh and Kerala and Punjab. But eventually we got a big mandate with the Odisha government, starting with the Hockey World Cup, which I lived in Odisha for a year for that project. But it was a fantastic experience because I got to manage on behalf of the Odisha government the project management for the Hockey World Cup, which held in 2018. It was a great experience, and it was one of a kind for me personally. It taught me more than anything, and I learned every day from it. And like everyone, you have to slog in this industry to make that happen, and uh, and you have to make some sacrifices. But it's what is going to make us as people grow and build the capacity of our industry. So the Hockey World Cup eventually was a stepping stone for Grant Thornton to get involved with the Odisha government into a full-fledged mandate, where today we help the Odisha government with all sports events, grassroots development, all activities across the state. And Odisha government, if you're not already aware, is one of the front runners and is so-called India's sports capital for sports events at least. Primarily because in the last 2 3 years it's held more than any other state, the more number of sports events, international sports events, and we help them organize that, of course. So that's been a great experience for me. And for people who are looking to work in the consulting space, I will tell you that sports events is one side of the chapter. There are n number of things we can do, and each project, each client has a different ask, and the role of a consultant is to adapt to that ask and to find the best way to provide the solution. And so each client we get has a different need, of the hour, and it's our job to help identify that and create that value for them so that they understand our importance, and it's not a one-time thing then. And then you keep ask they need your help on a recurring basis, and that's the key idea. You don't want them to tell them something they already know and have them just hold their hand and help them deliver it, because that's only going to last for a year or two and be short-lived. You want to help add that value and keep bringing on the latest technologies, the latest availability of people, and the right knowledge base to them so that they help add value. So on that note, I want to just segue into technology and how it's playing into sports in India today. And we are really trying to understand the best way we can help technology improve sports development in India. And we are, of course, learning from the West and Europe and even China on how they've been using technology to enhance stadiums in terms of security and to enhance softwares to get development spread across and knowledge spread across to the grassroots and to the rural areas. All those things we're trying to help, but we're still a long way off in how technology is used at this moment in India. Cricket, of course, is an outlier, but when we talk about a lot of the other sports in India, basketball, badminton, rugby, even polo, a lot of these sports, we are far off from maintaining the infrastructure, the technology standard with the rest of the world. And we're getting there, but we need to be able to understand where the gaps in technology are. And I think that's somewhere, as consultants, we add value. So if for those people who are looking to, again, work in the consulting space, technology is one of the biggest plays we have. And if you can get the knowledge and the insight and the technical capabilities to help advise people on the technological aspect and that value that adds to a client, that's a big win for you personally and for the client. So it'll be a big headway for you when you make your way into sports consulting. Um, when we talk about, I want to just skip back to our sports degree topic. And, because I had a master's in sports management, I understand ISST also delivers sports degrees, and a lot of you have them as well. Um, we more often than not use that piece of paper as just a way to showcase that we have a sports degree, and we like to just uh, keep it to that. And look, I'm a graduate from a sports management program, and I'm equipped enough to handle it. I think that's not the way it is, and we must understand that the value of the institutes which we are in and we are associated with have a long way in helping develop sports management professionals like you and myself. and we need to help educate the public in terms of the value proposition of a sports management degree is not just a piece of paper. It's way more, and the network we are, and then all of us talking together right now, the people we're connected with, the institutes which are connected with each other, and the kind of learnings we get from those institutes is fantastic. I mean, I've seen the kind of people ISST is getting on their webinars, and I'm lucky to be a part of it, of course, but they're fantastic individuals. And that is the network which we are all getting to be a part of and we get connected with. And it's up to us to maintain those relationships. I think that is the biggest plus we get as a sports management degree holder. We get access to all the people involved in our industry. And we have to make, it's up to us individually to make the best use of that. And I think that network is what is the biggest sell for us when we show we're a sports management graduate. So please do utilize your network. I think the sports industry, from my experience in India, is more than helpful. I have connected to ISST plus a number of other institutes plus federations and clubs, and they are more than helpful if you even directly approach them and cold call them, and everyone is more than happy to help out. And I'm sure it might be like that in other industries. I'm not sure because I haven't worked in it, but please do reach out to as many people as you can. Most of them will hit you back, and if you don't shoot, you don't score. So please do give it a try, and make your network as solid as possible. It's not just touching base on one time and the other. It's about creating quality relationships, and it'll go a long way. So the network is something which I helped develop. I had a good set of classmates from my time in Columbia University who are today all across the world, Russia, Germany, the US, of course, and in India as well. And, I'm well connected with all of them, and they are working in the sports industry as well. And, over the period of time, when you realize when you do make it at a certain level, you're able to leverage those relationships, and those are, invaluable. So please do leverage your network. The other thing is when we look for hiring sports management graduates, there are certain skills which we look at. And in consulting, especially, like I told you, it's a culmination of everything. But we do look at certain skills which are mandatory, and that's your ability to present yourself, because more often than not, you are facing a client, and the brand you wear is the consulting firm you work with. And it's very important that you are able to hold yourself individually without any senior person walking with you. So we look for that capability in you. Even if it's not there today, it's going to be there soon after a little bit of training. So you should be able to hold yourself and hold a conversation with the client on a one-to-one. You should be able to work on presentations, PowerPoint, Excel. These are basic things, and you should be fantastic with those, and be able to run those with your eyes closed. And those are 101s in consulting. So the PowerPoints and Excels are very important. So these are basic things which we look at. Apart from that, it is just the fact that, are you going to be adding value to me, or are you going to be just another person just helping me do what I ask? In consulting, we are very picky about who we choose, and we like to hire people based on, are you going to be able to make a difference to my client? Or are you just going to sit there and client tells you to make a presentation and you make it? That's not what we want. We want someone to tell them that, look, we are going to tell the client, look, this is what you need to do, and this is why you need to do it. So those people who think outside the box, those people who take initiatives, those are really a big plus in consulting. Just to now speak a bit about consulting in India and the firms that are involved with it. So consulting in India is still in sports when I say consulting. So it's still at a very nascent stage. We have a lot of sports agencies working, whether it's sports consults or India on Track, and a lot of these sports consulting who are doing fantastic work. And they're working with many clients at the moment developing sports, but it's still at a very nascent stage. And even the larger firms of the KPMGs and Deloittes and EY and Grant Thornton, and we are all making an effort to build this slowly and steadily. But it'll take a long time for it to develop. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but it's on the right track. And the people at the top who are passionate about sports have the right vision that, look, it does make commercial sense to invest in this space, because in the long term, it is leading somewhere. We just read, I think most of us must have read in the news recently, that Dr. Batra, the IOA president, has announced that we will be bidding for the Youth Olympics and the Olympics 2032 when the time comes. So those are just small pieces of hope we get that India is on the way to investing a lot more in sports, and we're on the right track. Certain stats which we had that the Indian sports industry is not even 0.1% of the global sports industry. So these are things which make us realize where we are today. But the people in this call and all of us together, it's up to us to help develop that, and the only way is up, like I said earlier. But it's up to us to make that into a quality profession moving forward. Um, just now moving on to what public sector is in India and the government, why I and Grant Thornton focus a lot on it. Um, at this moment, we are working with Odisha state government. Like I told you, we've recently been contracted by Uttarakhand government to do the national games. All of these mandates which we get from the government are primarily because they do have the intention to building sports up, and they do get a budget from the central government and their own state government as well, but they aren't leveraging it to the best of their abilities at that moment, and they do require skilled resources like all of us to help them address that gap. So we help them understand that there is that gap, and then we help address that gap as well. And it's been a great learning for me because I do realize that there are people in the government which have that same mindset like you and I, and want to invest in the right spaces in sports. It's not what we typically think of the government maybe 10, 20 years ago, that they don't know what they're doing, and they're just politicians sitting on their on their seat and just making decisions at their whim and not caring about sports development. That's not how it is anymore. There are extremely smart and forward-thinking people sitting at the government, and they understand the requirements and value added by individuals like us, by firms like ours, and the capabilities which we are able to contribute to the existing staff of the government. And that's why they engage in consultants like us. So the government is not what it was a long time ago, and they are making the right investments. However, the public does not see that at this moment because those investments may take some time to pay off, whether that's investment is in infrastructure or grassroots development or people. It takes about 5-10 years for investments to show the results, and it's slowly and steadily showing up now, but it's on the right track, and I'm hoping more and more state governments start getting on board with that mentality. So that's a little bit about the governments. I just want to also, if you have any questions, please keep writing them down in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer them. Um, I think there are some questions right now. Uh, Yeah, Dhwani has written, in terms of technology, what are the biggest barriers you've run? Dhanil has written, in terms of technology, what are the biggest barriers you've run into while talking to the various stakeholders? That's a great question, Dhwanil. One of the biggest barriers is basically the transformation and the culture change for the individuals involved at this moment, whether it is transferring everything to online or the people being trained to adapt it to it. It's resistance to change primarily. You see, even if at the top the person is most of the people are people with more than 20, 30 years of experience, and they're the kind of people we engage with. And by predominantly, in human beings, there's a resistance to change involved, and most people are not open, whether it is blockchain or any of the latest technologies we're talking about today. They're not very open to ideas which they don't fully understand. So the biggest challenge is to educate them onto what those technologies are and the value that it brings to them, and that's where we help bring that value. But it doesn't always be a success because there are sometimes the client is just not ready to accept that technology and the value it could bring, or is not ready to take that risk involved, and is happy with the current system as it is and doesn't want to make that change. What That is the single biggest barrier, I would say. But what we do focus on to break that barrier is to help them understand that it's only a matter of time till somebody has to change. It's the only constant, and it's something which we have to adapt to. So we kind of sell it to them that, look, if not now, 5 years from now, somebody's going to do it. It might as well be you. And we try and help them understand that, and that's the way we try to break that barrier. Prem has written, he's done his MBA in sports management. What do you have to do next on your future? Prem, of course, that is very subjective to each individual. If you want, I would love to talk to you individually after this call. Once I understand your background, I'll be happy to put my 2 cents onto you and advise you what I think you could do in the future. But having said that, please do understand that there are a whole dearth of opportunities available. I understand right now might not be the best time given the current pandemic in terms of job opportunities. Uh, but eventually, when things return to normality, I'm sure it'll come back to what it was before the lockdown, which is that it's only expanding and job opportunities are increasing. Personally, at Grant Thornton, I'm telling you, I hire about 8 to 10 individuals in sports with a sports management background each year, which may not be much to you, but that's just one company. There are, dozens of agencies out there just like mine and who are hiring at the same level maybe. So Prem, please do reach out to me after this and I'll be happy to talk one to one. Ishan has written, does having work experience help before going for your master's abroad? Absolutely. I would tell you that it's not just master's abroad, it's master's anywhere. For me, the reason what I stated before this is that master's is not just a piece of paper. If it was, then I would suggest get it done immediately after undergrad and take it and try and use it. But master's is about building a network, understanding what that institute brings to you, and building on that. So that's why it's important to get that work experience for two reasons. One is that you understand how the industry works before you get into a place where the number one selling point is the network you build. And the sports industry, I would not have benefited from not understanding how sports industry in India works and sports industry in US works if I didn't have to draw a parallel. If I had a few freshers in my post-graduation class as well, and there was a big difference between the freshers and those with experience in terms of their understanding of how to gain the best value out of your program. So wherever you're doing your masters before, even if it's abroad or in India, I would suggest you get experience because it gives you the maturity, it gives you the understanding of the industry, and that helps you leverage your program and your network in a better way. Julie has written, going to pursue degree in sports management. What are different roles in sports management and what are their duties? Sure. So sports management, if you're pursuing a degree, different roles in sports management is very broad. Again, let me tell you, sports is our industry and management in that is extremely broad. You could be in administration in a club, you could be working with infrastructure, you could be working with finance, HR, marketing. I mean, there's a whole career of people making sports management out of it. What I can clear to you is that when you study a sports management degree, it's very different from understanding what coaching is or what psychotherapy or nutrition and all these technical aspects in sports are. Sports management is about business, about consulting aspect to it. Coaching and management of management of a club is very different. That's not what sports management is in terms of your education. So please understand, people who are coaches, people who are managers of a football club, what they call it, they have a very different career growth and they have very different licenses which they get. And that's not to be confused with sports management as a career in terms of education degree. So I don't know if that is your question or not, but if you're talking about just the roles in sports management, let me focus to you in the business of sports management, what I'm doing in consulting. You can be in finance, HR, marketing, like I told you, there are different lines to it, but it's always important to understand that these are all options. You can work on multiple of them. You don't have to just choose one. Whereas when you're in coaching or when you're in nutrition, it's usually a very focused and important discipline. I can't do coaching today or I can't do nutrition. It's not my forte. But like what we heard from previous speakers over the last few weeks, there are people who specialize in those. And those degrees are very different to a degree in sports management. Let's see. Next question. Sunil G has asked, have other states ever approached you and GT to replicate the success stories of Odisha in their respective states? Absolutely, Sunil G. It's something which is happening every day. Odisha government has created a kind of a success story, a case study where other states are trying to replicate it. We are engaged in other state governments. Like I told you, we got a mandate recently with Uttarakhand government. It was primarily based that Uttarakhand is following Odisha's footsteps on hiring a sports consulting agency and the value Odisha got from it. So these kind of things are really happening, and it's about one person paving the path, and that's what Odisha did, and we are hoping other state governments follow. Vishal has asked, what would be a career path for someone starting into sports industry in terms of management? Again, Vishal, that would be subjective to what your background is, what your passion is, what you're good at. Um, Getting involved with a firm like Grant Thornton, let's say even at a fresher point, the advantage in consulting is that you get to try your hand in multiple domains. You will help a client with cost reduction, you help the client with marketing, with planning an event, all different roles, and it'll help you with different things. And you can probably then choose what kind of exact forte you want to bring onto your skill set. But again, it depends subject to what your preference is, what your personal profile is. Again, if you want to reach out to me individually after this, I would love to. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I think that's the best way to communicate, and I'll be happy to take it from there. Shubham has asked, how do I, as a fresher in the sports management industry, go about stepping into the sports consulting space? Shubham, that's the same as Vishal. Please do reach out to me. I would love to guide you on a personal level. But as a fresher, you always have an advantage of exploring all your options in sports. There are a lot of options available. The one tip I would give you is do not focus on your starting salaries. A lot of freshers, try and focus that, look, I'm getting 15,000 rupees a month here versus 25,000 a month there. This is just an example. I would suggest focus on where you get the best growth into the passion you want to follow. That would be my 2 cents. Please feel free to reach out to me after this. I would love to help you. Ananya has written, I'm currently in 12th grade. I want to pursue a career in sports. Can I do a BSM degree in India and a PG degree abroad? Absolutely, Ananya, you can. And not to dissuade you from anything, but uh, once you do a sports degree, whether it's bachelor's or postgrad, please understand it's important before you do your postgrad to work in the sports industry. The work experiences will teach you a lot more about the sports industry than the education itself. I told you the main thing about education, apart from the classroom learning, is the network you make. So wherever you are, please try and expand your network. And when I say network, it's not your classroom students, it's not your teachers, it's everyone beyond that who you connect to, the guest speakers, the industry they make you meet. Build that network up, because that is your biggest learning from your college or your postgraduate institute you learn from. But yes, you are in 12th. I'm sure you have a long way to go in terms of pursuing a career in sports, but I wish you well. And if you want tips about learning about which sports institutes are providing undergrad in India, I would love to talk to you about that as well. You can reach out to me. Rahul has written, as freshers, how should we take steps towards internships and placements after this pandemic gets over? How is it affecting Indian sports profession? I'm asking this as many of us are yet to appear for our final semester exam. Rahul, that's a great question. This is, of course, a sensitive time, and I will tell you personally, uh, I have put my hiring on a stop at this moment, just because businesses are extremely slow or shut at this moment, and when your revenue of a business is limited, you can't have too many expenses, and that's why my hiring is on a shut. Just because the current employees we have, myself included, our leadership does not want to lay off anybody, and we all may, if this continues, we may even take pay cuts for that. So what I'm trying to say is that for most firms, we are realizing the people are the most important, and we want to safeguard every individual in our firm, and not let anybody lose their jobs. So for that reason, I will tell you that hiring is a very difficult job at this moment. But what I also tell you, my personal opinion is that once this pandemic gets over and when this whole period is over, we will be hiring again and it'll go back to normal, because there will be a lot of projects in the pipeline. I can estimate over the next 1 year, 2 years, we will be hiring a lot more people than we have in the last 1 year. In terms of internships also, we are happy to take on interns in my company. I know a lot of other companies do that as well. It's important to know that internships are very, very important when you see the long-term perspective. We've had interns in our company as well, and I've helped a lot of interns personally and mentor them. It helps them either get a job post that or move on to further education with the internship. Please do not view internship as just as a name on your CV. I'm sure you'll find enough people who are willing to take you on as an intern with the right idea of grooming you to be a future potential employee of the firm. I think that's the way you view internships. That's how I did my internships back in the day, and that's how I think one should view it. But to answer your question, um, you should proactively reach out for internships at this moment, because once this pandemic is over, I will be reaching out to all the people who've reached out to me for internships and placements, and to see if I can fit them in anywhere once this is over. Ketan has a message saying, for creating relationships with players, coaches, federations, is it good to launch something related to online sports education by making a proper format of the course? Because they don't have any experience of such things like playing. After COVID, half of the things will be shifted to online. So what do you suggest? Of course, online is a great platform. I understand a lot of the things will be shifted online, even um, not just education, but even talking to your clients and stakeholders. A lot of them are going to be starting on VC moving forward. I'm very happy about that. It saves a lot of time. It's way more efficient. Um, but yes, if you are planning to start something, you have to completely weigh the pros and cons about it, on what your business model would be. Again, if you want to talk about this separately, I would love to take it up with you. But yes, online is a great platform to get involved with, whether you're trying to launch something of your own or launch it with somebody. um, I won't say that players, coaches, and federations don't have any experience except for playing. I would not say that, because there are a lot of exceptions to that. I know enough coaches, federations, and players who, throughout their playing career, have built enough understanding of what the working industry of sports is like. So don't just be blinded by thinking that they don't have anything apart from playing. They do, and you'll be able to understand that once you engage with them a lot more. But feel free to engage with me. I'll be happy to talk to you about how on forms can be set up. Suraj has written sports science future in India and difference between sports science future in India and difference between sports management. So if you're asking the difference between sports science and sports management, of course there's a very fine line, and let me tell you that sports science is way more technical in terms of how it focuses a lot on technology, on nutrition, on what I spoke to you about, the technical aspects, and those things are what uh, segregate the people focusing on sports science versus management. Management, like what I do, focuses more about process improvement, about managing budgets, about managing client relationships in terms of uh, executing events and executing management related activities. Um, Sports science is about helping technical aspects like nutrition, physiological aspects, technical technology aspects, how best we can use medicine, these kind of fields into sports. Both of them do go hand in hand, I would say. One is not usually possible without the other. Um, for example, a client, let's say, take a football club, for example. They have sports management individuals who are running the administration side of it, who are running the operations of the club, who are managing the purchases and the buys. That's the sports management side. They also have coaches, the nutritionists, physical trainers, all those people who have a sports science mentality, even if they've not done the education on that level. It is sports science. It's talking about how to better your athletes in terms of the physiological capabilities. So that is what sports science is, and that's the difference between the two. If I haven't answered your or anybody's questions in the way you wanted to, please do reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer it. Let's see. Next question. Kunal has written, why do you think people leave sports at an early age even when they have the potential in them? Okay, I'll answer your question one by one. People leave, I mean, I'll tell you why I left sport. I don't think I had the potential in me to make it at the top level. And I was, of course, I had my lows about it, but I was guided in the right way by people to understand that it was the right time to get into sports business and to understand that aspect of sports. And very soon I started loving it. I interned at a few sports events when I was 19 years old, 20 years old, and I started loving how to organize sports events at that level. And this is about what, 12 years ago now, so 13 years ago, and I started building my passion for sports events and sports management as such from there. So I left it for that reason, because I saw a career for me in sports events. But I do believe that a lot of people leave it because they may not find it financially viable for them, especially at this moment in non-cricket sports. I feel if somebody is playing an individual sport in our country and is not able to make a lucrative living of it, they start looking at for different areas. What I'm hoping for is the industry we all are together trying to build over the next 10, 15 years, similar to the West, is going to make sports as a viable career option. That means athletes will not have to leave their careers based on financial needs uh, in the long term. How can we as an industry, sports policy, provide for such talent to empower them to continue in sport? This is what I'm trying to tell you, is that we already have cash incentives set by governments for athletes, but clearly that's not enough. And we want to overall, when the industry grows and there's a high investment in it, it'll make sports as a profession more viable, not just for the top tier, the ones who are making it to the cream, but also those who have struggled through it, they still have a viable option from career in sports. A lot of companies provide sponsorship and support to only hire elite athletes. Can the same not be provided at the grassroots level to encourage participation in sports and physical activity? Of course, it can be done. Again, it's about companies providing sponsorship. Is usually they see some sort of a return. So if they have 100 rupees and they spend it on an athlete who's making it to the Olympics, and they're trying to sponsor that level, it's getting them some traction versus, let's say, what I was when I was, 16, 17, who was playing football at a state level. I would not get them any traction. So why should they invest even 10 rupees out of the 100 on me versus an Olympic athlete? I mean, I shouldn't. I don't think they should. What I will tell you is that we should find enough ways and that we should expand that pie of 100 rupees to 1000 rupees so that there's enough for everyone. And that's something which our sports industry is leading towards, but it's going to take some time. And I think that's what we're talking about. We're talking about increasing the pie, not just dividing the share in a different way. Uh, yes, I get your question. Thank you for that. Rahul has written, which place do you get job after doing sports management? Rahul, you again, that's depending on what kind of focus you're doing in your sports management program, but typically it is sports agencies, sports clubs, consulting firms. These are the typical areas, companies which you get a job after sports management. A lot of the sports agencies in India, which I named, some of them I named before, they do hire sports management individuals. Um, Grant Thornton, we hire individuals for sports management background, and you'll find football clubs, franchises, sports franchises, cricket franchises in India, all having these people coming onto them now more than ever. If you have to compare your sports consulting experience versus consulting at EY, what would that be? That's a great question, Ashish. I did consulting in EY in sports as well, but I also worked in different sectors like MSME and even internal process management. I will tell you that I love what I do and I love consulting in the sports industry. So even my bits in EY, I was most passionate about when I worked in the sports project. I think it was very clear to the people I was working with. Even today, everything that drives me is my passion. So when I talk about consulting in the sports industry, it makes me work 24/7, and I love to do it. And I'm sure if you're working in the space I am, you'd want to work on a Saturday, Sunday as well, if you love that. So just to compare, I love it when I'm working in sports, so it's always a tad better than not working in sports. Vishal has asked, how about doing diploma abroad in terms of understanding technical and then doing management in India? Don't you think understanding technical side of sports would help us better in management as well? Um, yeah, absolutely. Yes and no to that. You will understand the technical side of sports and it will help you in management as well. Um, but it depends on what technical training you're getting. I would say if you're getting a technical training, let's say on data mining, for example, that's a specific field in management. You talk about how data is used in sports, and let's say the Moneyball concept. There are people using that across the world in sports clubs, and that'll help you address that need with across the world, and you'll have enough people valuing that experience of yours. But then it's focused towards that, and you're probably not a jack of all trades, but you're focused on one, which is a fantastic thing to have. But it's not necessarily going to help you with learning the other sides of management because you're going to be focusing on the one particular field. So I will tell you, it's not one is better than the other. You can choose to do one technical side, or you can focus on a pure management side of it. There are enough opportunities on both. It's just personally up to you what you want to do. Ananya, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. That is the best way. I will write down my email on the comments as well after this. On my Grant Thornton email, you can reach out to me on email as well. Urvi has written, what are the other things we need to learn before getting into sports consultancy? I would simply tell you the what I've mentioned earlier. Please do understand that the things we look at are people who have basic MS Office training. You're able to make the PowerPoints and Excels and Word because that is everyday need for us. But you're also able to communicate properly, and you're able to understand um, how to communicate with people and how to manage yourself. Uh, in terms of technical experiences consulting, even if you're a fresher, you learn it on the job. I didn't even know what consulting was when my first day when I got into consulting, and that's when I started learning what it really is like. Nobody teaches us in high school about what consulting is, and we only learn it when we're already in the job. So please know that you don't really need to have understanding of exactly what the client requires on day one of the job, but you have to have the aptitude to want to learn on the job. Rahul has written, my passion is towards sports analytics, especially in football. Is there a course in Indian institutions which would solely focus on data analysis in sports? Rahul, I do have an answer for you. Let's talk about that individually. I can refer you to the right people for sports analytics in India. It is up and coming. And there is a need for it at this moment. So if you wanted to learn that, it's a great option. I can discuss with you individually. Mr. Nitin Pant, Captain Nitin Pant has written, what is the future of sports management consulting in India considering the current COVID situation and many states already stated using sports as a tool for community engagement and talent development? What goes into planning an international event like Hockey World Cup? Thank you, Nitin. Two great questions. Let me take the first one out. COVID situation, a lot has been spoken about. We are trying to use the current pandemic to use and make people realize the value of sports. We see a lot of social media content telling us today about how the pandemic is making us realize the value of the environment, the value of people around us, and all those things. I think that's what we're trying to step on, and that's what we're trying to leverage. Seeing that sports is a tool which has helped bring people together, and more often than not, people have forgotten that. Companies have forgotten that, organizations have forgotten that, people have forgotten that, parents have forgotten that, and we're trying to make people understand that more and more. So a lot of weightage is now going towards showing sports as a tool to bring people together. It's something which requires focus on our community in India, especially, which people did not have the mindset towards investing their time in sports, and we're trying to help the community build that mindset. And I think this is a good situation for us to leverage. So yes, you're absolutely right that we're trying to build that up. The future of sports management consulting, I do believe, is only on the way up. Uh, at this moment, let's say it's hit the pause button. But once normality comes back, and I'm hoping it does, like all of us, but once it does come back, I do believe that sports management consulting is going to only increase. Um, there is going to be a lot of demand for people like all of us who have a sports management background, who are able to showcase we have value to add to the clients, who are able to showcase that we can deliver quality um, uh, value addition. So for that, there is going to be a demand, and for that reason, I think sports management consulting is going to be on the rise. I think Vishal has asked, how can we meet you in person after pandemic for a chat? Of course, again, Vishal, reach out to me in LinkedIn. Once this pandemic is over, we can figure out where to meet. I sit in Delhi, Gurgaon. So if you are this side, we can meet. If you're somewhere else, when I'm in my travels to Bombay, Pune, or wherever, we can kind of have a session there as well. But now we have this technology. If you want to have a one-on-one video session, we can do that as well. Thank you. Last couple of questions. Julie has written scopes of sports management jobs in Pune. Uh, Julie, I don't think I would be the best position to answer that. I can tell you about Delhi, maybe Bombay, Odisha, these kind of places. I might personally, I haven't worked in Pune myself. I would refer you to talk to Mr. Vipul Lanawat or Mr. Sunil Bhatia, and then they will be able to guide you even better on that management, the opportunities in Pune. I'm sure they'll be able to better guide you. But if you have questions about sports management jobs across India, I would be able to answer those. I think those are all the questions. If you have any other questions, please do reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to talk to you. I know I've taken up almost an hour of your time. So thank you for taking this out. Just as a closing remark, I would tell you that there are a lot of people who discouraged me into following my passion and building sports consulting as a career. I had a lot of people who said that to me. I'm not sure if you've had that along your way, but I had that, and today I'm very happy to say that I listened to those people who were telling me to follow my passion because it paid off, and so don't get discouraged. There are going to be people who will tell you no, but if you do follow your passion and you keep at it, eventually it will pay off. It paid off for me, and I hope it does pay off. Please ensure you get the right guidance. There are enough people with experience in the industry who will be able to help you. Follow that right guidance. Don't be impulsive about things, and I'm sure it'll help you in your careers in the future. There are enough people in our network, and I would be happy to guide each one of you if you reach out to me, and we can be in touch. If you have any others, reach out to me. I have a few questions which I missed. Uh, if there are, please do reach out to me in person. I'd be happy to answer them. I think I'm going to log off now. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope I didn't bore you too much. I've never spoken so much in one go in my life without another person talking. But I hope I didn't bore you. And thank you for your time. I look forward to talking to you one on one. Please do reach out to me.